I'm very independent learner, but I also just had this growing fear that I wasn't doing things right and I needed someone to double check my work. So like that's when I just like started looking around and seeing like how can I just double check myself. And CodeBuddies was listed on the Odin Project as like a place to like hang out with other people, and the hangout sort of platform of just like joining other people in live coding sessions like really freaked me out at first. I was just like, being on a hangout with someone is a really intimate thing, and like I don't know if I can do that with strangers. I've gotten over that. But when I was just first learning how to code, I'm just like, I'm just gonna text people in Slack with my, and even just asking a question in Slack with the like channel of over like 1,000 people in it, just like really intimidated me because I was just like, these people, they don't know who I am, but they might think I'm stupid for asking this question. But then I was just like, well, they don't know who I am, so who cares if I'm asking a really dumb question? I need an answer. Like doing those things helped get over myself, and just like help me be more like a self-sufficient learner. Because if you are stuck on a problem and you're too scared to ask about like what your problem, or asking other people for help, then you're just going to waste time. And so now that I've done that, like I've been able to just ask questions, and the more that you ask questions, the more that people just start talking to you. And I just found myself gaining a community when I was learning in CodeBuddies, and especially in the Ruby channel. And so because I was learning Ruby on Rails. And so I was just a very active member in there. And as I was gaining more experience, I was asking or answering other people's questions. And that it just started naturally happening. And then when one of my good friends, Will, like he pressured me and just saying like, hey, you should really go to meetups if you really want to be a developer. And again, like I'm like, no, because I don't know anything, and like I feel like I need to know things in order to talk to people that actually know things. So I'm gonna just kind of hold off on that. And so I went to a Baltimore has a yearly thing for women. It's called a Be More on Rails workshop for women, and it's just a workshop just for women, just to learn how to do a basic like Rails framework. Yeah, so I was still learning at this time. I was like, I get this early 2016, and I went to this workshop, and I found like as I was doing the exercises, I was like, I've already done this like through the Odin project, and like I know a lot of these concepts. So like I was helping other participants of the workshop actually doing things, and that just helps like gain confidence in myself. And that's when I actually met the CTO of the company that I would actually work for the ad tech company that I was talking about. And so that just like really opened doors, and I'm just able to push myself outside of the boundaries, and making myself uncomfortable. And then from there, I was doing actual meetups, and I gave a lightning talk of just like an application that I built and stuff. And just putting myself out there just like helped open doors. And then the thing that I love about the developer community is people get so excited when people are learning how to code.
True.
And that's like no other field really has that excitement, because we all have the joy of like, hey, we built something, we told the computer what to do and the computer did it. And like we know what joy that brings inside of us. And so then when someone else learns it, it's like we're living through their joy as well. And I don't know, I've never really experienced that sort of like passion from any other field. And I was originally wanting to stay in academia when I graduated college. And so I'm just really glad that my career turns this way, where I'm in a field where people are passionate about learning and passionate about expanding the limits of what technology can do. It's just a really cool feeling to be on the leading edge of essentially a technology and just building something that other people use. I've always been interested in security, more interested, I guess, in breaking things and exploiting things for how they're not supposed to be used, because there's always loopholes. And if you don't guard your applications or even just your processes from those loopholes, people can take advantages of them. And so my first software engineering gig, I was doing web scraping um, for ad tech, which is advertising. And it really just astonished me how insecure the web was, because I was just writing basic Ruby scripts to gather people's data. And some applications I was using was sending passwords through plain text over HTTP. And that just signals, hey, anyone can see this information that's going across the wire. And not gonna lie, like, I was working at a startup and I felt really scared because we were gathering other people's data, but then our customers were relying on us to keep their data safe. And if our application wasn't secure, then their data wasn't secure as well. And so you hear a lot in the news about people just losing their data because of OpenS3 buckets, because they weren't configured correctly. So it just, that kind of just weight just felt like a moral obligation to me that I needed to get into something where I could help protect the web. And I actually had my first layoff experience with this company. They cut like 30% of their developers, and unfortunately, I was part of the layoff. But it actually worked out for the best because I was on a DC Slack channel, and my coworker now, she posted that they were hiring for security engineers at Mapbox, and it was, when I read the application, it was like a dream come true. Their company culture was amazing. And it would be essentially doing what I wanted to do, was to make the web a better place. It's actually been over a year now. No. The stuff I'm doing now, it just feels so different from what I was expecting, because I do a lot of infrastructure work on AWS, and a lot of open source work. We develop a lot of tools for other people to leverage AWS easier, and configuring just their AWS stacks easier. So I help maintain those tools, and I do a lot of work in Node. And I started my training through the Odin Project, which is primarily Ruby on Rails. And essentially web development, not background, or not infrastructure work or DevOps sort of things. So like I find myself reading a lot of documentation and reading a lot of undocumented code and just guessing, hey, is this going to work? Because I don't know until I actually try it out. Two very influential thought leaders in my life right now, and Infosec community, is Leslie Carhart. She is absolutely an amazing thought leader. She does a lot of like OSINT work and DFR work, which OSINT is open source intelligence and DFR is digital forensic work. And so open source intelligence, that just means like looking at anything online and gathering intel on whatever thing that you're interested in. And DFR is just looking at the logs essentially and trying to come to a conclusion and analysis of like what actually happened, like why did this attack happen. And she has a great blog, and her Twitter game is amazing. Her Twitter handles Leslie Pancakes. And then another thought leader is Daniel Meisler. He has a really great blog and a weekly podcast that he does just on the news of Infosec. And so like that's how I keep up to date a lot with what's going on in the Infosec community. But the Infosec community is very large. And there's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. I'm speaking from an engineer perspective, but you have security researchers, you have security analysts, you have security, yeah. I guess those are like the two other main things, but like when you're actually in the security community, there's not actually a lot of security engineers. And when you go to a conference, like especially a security conference, that it feels like they are trying to understand engineers and their mindset, because as a security personnel, like you want to keep your software up to date. You don't want anything to fall out of line because that's how you can get attacked. If you're running outdated software, it just leaves you very vulnerable. And that's how the Equifax hack happened last year because they were running outdated Apache servers. So it's just a very different environment, especially when you've gone to like other developer conferences where it's just talking about best development practices. In the security world, a lot of it is just trying to understand engineers and get them motivated to do the right secure thing. Because the right secure thing is usually harder than the easy thing of just doing it and getting it deployed out in production. And who cares if, it's not communicating over HTTPS, at least it's working. So I actually just found like a really great resource that I've been using recently. It's called Cybrary, and that is like a Coursera, but for information security. So it's been a really just like really helpful, and just learning all different sort of things, all for free too. I did. I went to DEFCON last year. I won't be able to go this year. But it was an amazing experience, and I've actually have made some good friends from DEFCON from last year. But yeah, DEFCON is really great. And it's basically open to anyone. Like anyone can go there and have a great time and learn a lot. Living in DC is just amazing. I always put that out there. I was living in Baltimore before I got the job at Mapbox. Mapbox actually is the reason why I joined and lived down in DC. It really feels like you're living in a neighborhood and not necessarily a city. It's a very clean city as well. And everyone that like pretty much works here is just really inspired to make a difference in the world. So it's very like friendly and inclusive, and just overall just a great culture. And the tech community is pretty much the same, where like everyone's just really inspired and just really geared up and doing a lot of different things. And I'm actually just really surprised with how big the tech community is here, because there's a lot of just other companies that is just not government. So if you're learning how to code, definitely just using those resources is definitely helpful, but also building a community around yourself is really helpful as well. And that's when I built a community around myself, I was able to push myself and other limits that I probably wouldn't have had if I was just coding by myself, because other people could help me steer me in the right direction when I was going a little bit too off course in my thinking, or even just pushing my boundaries and saying like, hey, you should actually go to that meetup and actually network with people, because like networking is the number one thing. And like once you feel like you can code and you understand concepts, now you actually have to meet people that are hiring if you wanted to actually get a job. And so that's what my community helped me do when I was learning to code. Just as far as if you wanted to get into information security, the information security community is dying for people. There's a lot of opportunities out there. They honestly, we're just hurting for people. There's a lot of work that needs to get done, and just not a lot of people to do it. And so if anyone's just like really interested in it, just continue to learn. There's bug bounty platforms like HackerOne and BugCrowd. So like if you wanted to get into like, hey, how do I hack a thing, or how can I make the internet a safer place? So one way that you can build up your portfolio is to submit bug bounty reports to platforms that have programs with these websites. Mapbox has a program on HackerOne, and so if you submit a bug report to Mapbox, like we'll take a look at it and we can give you money if it's a valid like security bug. And one of the things that's great with these platforms is you get a reputation system in there, and then at least HackerOne, like they invite their top hackers to do some penetration testing with like their top clients, and we've done these sort of hackathons as well. And so it's a really great way for people to get exposure and just like networking with other folks. But if you wanted to get into information security and are just really interested in breaking things, I say that in the most like hearted way, but definitely just getting your hands dirty is the best way to get experience and exposure. I studied mathematics in college, primarily because I wanted to go to grad school for linguistics. But just like looking back on it now, I think whatever you find interesting in college, or whatever fields that you find interesting in school, that's what you should study, because that's what's going to motivate you to stay up super late and do that book report, or stay up super late and solve that problem set that's just driving you mad. If you are just in a program of study where you're just doing this to get a career out of it, and you don't have that passion, and that's, like even if you wanted to go to software development, like I know people who are English majors that are in software development now. And that experience actually like really helps you, believe it or not, than just like a math background or like a computer science background. Like, yeah, like that person that was an English major, yeah, they're going to have to like learn how algorithms work, or have more of a logic, study more logic based things, but they also have other experience that they actually bring into the field now, that us like math STEM majors didn't really have, bringing more communication efforts into their better literacy in our documentation, and other things that we necessarily with other experiences don't have. So right now I am learning more JavaScript, like technical things with async. No, wait.
Nice.
I like just got the hang of promises, and now I'm telling myself I should learn how to do more things with asynchronous things in JavaScript. I am an officer in the National Guard, so that means that I am for a section. We actually, it's really cool. Like my section, like we're responsible for the communications for our whole entire unit. So we set up like from the ground up, like an internet infrastructure. So it's just really, I really enjoy going to drill because I get the experience, like more of the physical experience of setting up a network. And it has taught me a lot of how the internet actually works. So we have our own satellite that we set up, and then we have our own like server stacks that we like plug in and stuff. So it's a really cool experience. I've struggled with this for with a couple of years until I finally got down like a good workflow, but use a system called GTD, which is getting things done. Framework is pretty much like you just dump everything that's on your mind and you pretty much just allow your mind to be like water throughout the day. And so anything, like any task that like comes up in your mind, you're writing it into whatever system. And then your system of like what you can do today, what you can defer until another day, or what you can delegate to someone else, or if you actually really need to do that thing, because sometimes the thing that's on your mind you don't really need to do. You could just like let it slide. So it has taken like some just practice for that, but that's a system that I primarily use, and it helps me just stay focused and just be able to get things done. One tool or more of like methodology that I really want to give like a shout out to, because it has made an enormous difference in my life, is the Marie Kondo technique, which I know it's not developer focused, but the Marie Kondo, just surrounding yourself with things that make you joyful. And I pretty much got rid of all the things that like didn't spark joy in me. And so what the technique is, like when you're an object in your hands, like if it doesn't spark joy in you, then you should. And so now I'm like living in an apartment that everything in it just makes me happy, and that actually allows me to be focused and do work. It's honestly like that's just not hands down. If you're ever struggling with depression, or you're struggling with just staying motivated, really just changing around your surroundings and just evaluating your life, it really does help.
Thank you so much for your time, Olivia.
Thank you so much for having me.